Old School Lane Casual Chats is brought to you by oldschoollane.blogspot.com and is associated with Manic Expression, the Comic Book Cast, the Reopen Nickelodeon Studios in Orlando, Florida Facebook page, the PlayStation Let's Play channel, and for entertainment's sake. Hello everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of Casual Chats. I am Patricia, and I am here with a very special guest. This is a really big one, people. He is an animator, he's a voice actor, he is a huge fan of cartoons and anime, and he has been doing numerous projects for online and as well as video games. So we have none other than Kirbopher Niosi. Chris, welcome to Casual Chats.
Hi, thank you for having me, and thank you for pronouncing my name correctly. That is quite a feat that very few are ever able to accomplish. Much appreciated.
Absolutely. I mean, I could have just maybe, struggled for like 15 minutes and saying, your name is Niosi?
Chris Noisy, Chris Knoxville. Combination that thereof, but I'm happy to be here. Sorry to any listeners who this might have been announced for. I apologize for taking so long. We had multiple delays, but I had some time tonight, and so Patricia was kind enough to have me on now, and for whenever this comes up. But I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. I just want to let you know, for all of our listeners, I have been a huge fan of this man's work for almost a decade. Yeah, I know. I've been following your work ever since you posted your very first episode of Parody Rangers. It's just been, really interesting about how far you've come with all of your work. So, right before we discuss about all that good stuff, and maybe you'll feel nostalgic memories, or maybe you'll be regrettable about it, who knows, but we'll get to that in a minute. I just want to know, what are your earliest memories of doing animation and first animated show that you watched, and when did you get interested in doing art?
Well, I've been drawing literally all my life, and I've always been telling stories and coming up with characters and ideas for all sorts of different things. Tome, in fact, which is the main thing I do, of course, now, was just one of many, and then there are many more that I still want to do now that I've learned how to animate and all the other too many things that I've enveloped myself in. Animating was I've actually my very first Kerblog that I ever did, which are the vlog series that I do on my YouTube channel, was about how I got into animation. But to give kind of a short version of that story, more or less, was I was taking a class in this local place I went to. It was like a computer learning center in Long Island. somewhere, and I was originally learning Flash. This is back when it was what the hell was it? It was Macromedia Flash before it was Adobe, and I was mainly picking it up because I wanted to learn how to program so I could make games. And I found out kind of in that learning experience that programming just really wasn't for me. But I'd always before that kind of made these little crappy PowerPoint. I hesitate to call them cartoons because they weren't really animated. But they were these little like slideshow movie pseudo cartoons I used to make, and I realized that Flash was kind of a more advanced version of that. So I was like, oh, okay. And I think this might have been a subconscious thing, but I remember as a kid always. Whenever there'd be an episode of a show, like Tiny Toons did an episode about this, where they would actually show you the step-by-step process of how an animated episode of a show was made. And I didn't really think too hard about it, but I think that might have actually been like sort of an unconscious, influence on why I got interested in actually doing animation and having that be the main kind of go-to thing for me now. And, and then I just kind of started teaching myself a lot of stuff, by trial and error with a lot of the stuff that I'm sure you probably know me from my Newgrounds days and everything. And then ultimately I started going to college and, learning from really good, like true animators, people who had been in the business that worked on like these great movies and films and TV shows and things like that. And then from there on out, I just kind of, continued forward. And, Parody Rangers was 2006. That was kind of the first time I was really like actually animating or like doing hand-drawn stuff like for a full movie, because before that I was doing like sprite things and I didn't really know how to incorporate my drawings into any of my stuff before. So Parody Rangers was actually kind of a big leap in terms of actually learning how to animate, and then college kind of helped with the rest. And I'm still learning. There's still so much more that I could be better at, and that I strive to hone my skills, as it were, in different ways. But was that a long-winded enough answer for that question?
Oh, it's very interesting considering that, going into like how you were able to be influenced by animation and by art, starting it off like really early on. And, it's kind of interesting because there's an episode of Rocko's Modern Life that also taught about the basics of animation, the Wacky Deli episode, that also,
Nice.
Yeah, I know, the most infamous episode of all for Rocko's Modern Life fans. But it also gives a step-by-step on how animation was done. And we just take something that we really love at a young age, and then we are able to incorporate it into our adulthood, and we never thought that we can be able to, do this for a living. Maybe many people would consider it to be like a childish kind of thing. Now, were your parents really supportive of this, or did they want you to be like a doctor or something?
No, I'm actually very grateful for the fact that my entire family was always very, very supportive of me being an artist. A lot of people in my family, were creative people. My mom is an interior decorator, and my sister was an actress, which people, if anybody, you or any of your listeners grew up with The Adventures of Pete and Pete. She was Ellen on that show on Nickelodeon many years ago.
Oh, that's right. Your sister was Allison Finelli.
That's right. Yes, indeed. And she also did voiceover, and I was able to sort of bring her. I mean, she's a doctor now, but I've kind of mini brought her out of retirement with Tome and had her voice a one-off hacker character in one of the episodes, which was kind of fun. But so there's and my brother is an artist, and he's a freelance guy that does a lot of amazing design stuff, and so there's just a lot of like creative folks in my family already, and so they were completely accepting and understanding of just how this stuff worked. And of course, there was like, oh, make sure you have a backup plan, and make sure that you're saving up enough money and getting jobs and stuff and staying busy and everything. So thankfully they've been supportive for all my life, and they really helped me out with saving up enough money when I finished college a few years ago, and eventually made the jump to California, where I've been living here for, at the time of recording this, for about 10 months now, I believe, which is insane. It's been passing by so quickly. I've been thankful for that. Yeah, it's I don't know if I would have gotten nearly as far as I have without just their patience and their support, and just giving me the ability to just keep learning and honing my craft as much as I could. So
absolutely. Now, let's just say that your interests of animation and drawing didn't pursue you into being the person that you are. If there was any other career that you would have liked to have pursued in, what would have been and why?
It's funny because I've thought about that before, and a lot of my friends and colleagues have very often kind of gone so far, because, I mean, if any of you guys follow, like, I've never heard me on other interviews or whatever, and if you know me personally, I'm a walking, talking encyclopedia of voiceover stuff. And a lot of my friends think, dude, you should just be a voice actor, like, full-time. Like, just study that and focus on that. And I choose to do everything because I'm insane. But I think if maybe, like, I had taken theater in school or, kind of pursued that stuff a little bit more, I feel like maybe I would have gone into doing acting full-time. As opposed to, kind of focusing more on art and animation and things. But what I'm very thankful about is the fact that I have the ability to do all of that stuff, mainly as part of an extension of what I do on my own. But in recent years, I've also been very, very lucky, and I actually even more so since I moved to California, to get professional voiceover work in some anime shows and some video games and even some American cartoons. In fact, there are actually 2 really big video games that I recorded on since I moved out here that are hopefully going to be coming out, I think, sometime in, like, the fall of this year, maybe even, like, late summer. I can't talk about them just yet, but they're going to be on their way very soon. So I guess I'm thankful that I also get to pursue what my, second choice, that the answer to this question would have been, because I can do both of those things. But I think if I had not focused as much on animation and storytelling, I probably would have focused more on acting. And, and I think things would have maybe turned out, like, okay in that case as well. But I don't regret the choices that I've had, and I'm really glad that I get to do so many different things. Even if I'm not a master of any of those things necessarily, just getting the opportunity to do all of them is something that I'm, like, eternally grateful to the world for.
Oh yeah, definitely. Considering that, especially when you're doing something that you absolutely love, there's always a big opportunity for you to grow and to learn, especially since the world of animation and art is constantly changing. And, sometimes it could be a little bit hard to adapt to the changes, but at the same time, it's also really fun to learn about all the new things that are coming out and for you to absorb it and for you to be able to mature as an artist and as an actor. And I think that that's really one of the good things about it, is that because everything is so diverse and different, I mean, animation and art has changed dramatically over just a short amount of time. I mean, going into, like, stuff like web animation and indie video games, it's just astonishing about how, so much has changed, and I'm sure that things will continue to change as time goes on.
Yeah, and I hope they'll continue to change for the better. I've often talked about this because I think the internet is kind of it's a double-edged sword in many, many ways, and particularly for me, it's a double-edged sword in that it is definitely changing the entertainment world because of the stuff that you just mentioned, for sure. Both in that, we have the ability, I say all the time specifically, so I'm sorry if I'm regurgitating.
It's okay, it's really late at night.
We live in this era now where we can literally just make whatever we want and just put it out there, and it just exists. And it's awesome because we just have all this, we don't have to get, like, all the support from, like, a major studio or whatever. If people want to make a game and they just get a bunch of their friends together or a show or a comic or whatever, and they can just make it and put it on the internet and it's there. The downside is that it can be very difficult and tricky to make a living doing it on the internet because of the fact that, like, trends change very quickly and internet audiences can be a little fickle and stupid sometimes. I've been very blessed that my following has been very, though niche, very supportive and very dedicated, and I mean, I wouldn't be continuing to do Tome without them. So anybody listening, if you've seen the show and if you've supported it, or, like, just either watching it or donating or whatever, you have my eternal gratitude. But I said at the beginning too, there's just so many things that I want to continue to do, and and make them bigger and better and beyond what it is that I've already been doing, and really push my limits and just get better and better and make lots of cool stuff for people, and hopefully people will continue to enjoy it. That's all I can really hope for. So.
Oh, absolutely. Considering that Tome is really starting to get really big out there, you just, are I believe you're almost done with your second season, and already, you know, it's already gaining like a large following, and also including with your earlier work that people are first introduced with. You know, with basically when I first saw your work at Newgrounds, looking at Parody Rangers, I remember it was like during a time in which a lot of people were kind of being nostalgic about, you know, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and basically just you know, seeing a spoof of it and playing off with all of the tropes and cliches that the original Power Rangers were doing, like the overacting characters and the way that the movie was being portrayed and the silly monsters and stuff like that. I think that was just, you know, really touching for a lot of people who grew up with Power Rangers, but at the same time, maybe it was for people who didn't like Power Rangers and thought it was just ridiculous and constantly making fun of it. So, there's already been a video about how you got the idea of, you know, Parody Rangers, and I was wondering, for the people that you casted for Parody Rangers, now you just basically gathered up a group of your friends and you just decided to do Parody Rangers. So what were like the process like of, you know, doing each episode of Parody Rangers, and eventually you did the Parody Rangers movie?
Well, it was kind of an interesting sort of thing. I actually don't know if I've told the story of how I came up with it, but I admit it's actually kind of it's kind of a not so great part of my creative process, because I will admit fully it was kind of factoried in the sense of like, whoa, nobody's done a Parody Rangers spoof on the internet, except for at the time there was the Mighty Moshin Emo Rangers, which was a MySpace thing. Remember MySpace, everybody? Yeah. And so it was kind of almost like this like scummy business side of me of like, oh, this is an untapped market on Newgrounds. I'm going to do this and blah, 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 and I'll be popular. And it worked. And I'm not fully proud of that, but and to be totally honest, I also think that the original 3 episodes of the series, as it were, aren't really funny. They don't really hold up that well. But the movie, I actually am still, and not that I think it's amazing or anything, but I'm still kind of proud of the movie because I learned a lot of really interesting things doing that. There's some funny moments, kind of like genuinely funny, kind of like scattered around. It was my first time like voice directing people for a cartoon, and you know, as far as the cast goes. By the way, casted is not a word. Sorry to nitpick about that, but I think actually, you know. It was kind of funny. A lot of the cast were sort of the alumni of the I hesitate to say voice actors, because some of them were actors and some of them were friends of mine with microphones. But people that I worked with on TV Tome Adventures, which was kind of the ancient, ye old version of Tome from many years ago, which people don't go finding it. It's not good. It's really not. You're not missing anything. But I worked with a lot of people on that, including folks like Christopher Zito, who's wonderful, Jacob Sanders, Edwin Tiong, and there were some new folks who I hadn't worked with, such as Rina Adachi and Maria Vu. The whole thing was kind of also, of course, I should give credit where credit is due. At the time, I was friends with Aaron Hansen, and he used to do these little sound clips on his Sheezy art. Remember Sheezy art, everybody? Of like, you know, little goofy, like high-pitched jokes about different shows and things. And he did this one about Zordon, like, screaming for Tommy and Jason and Alpha or whatever to like wipe his cylinder because he couldn't poop or some shit like that. I forget. And that kind of inspired the original idea, and then from there I came up with the actual Ranger characters. And you know, like Zordon and Alpha and a lot of the characters that were literally just like, here's a exaggerated version of the characters from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. This isn't very original at all. Like those I don't have much attachment to, but Meat and the Rangers themselves, like, even though I think the bare bones of them were like, these are, you know, exaggerated versions of the original 6 guys from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, but they kind of evolved into their own characters, and I'm actually really still kind of attached to them. In particular, Meat and Billiam, the two of them, they still crack me up. And not because of my jokes or whatever, it was mainly because of Zito and Edwin's performances as them, which is why you continue to hear the two of them in most of the stuff that I make to this day. Yeah, so, and actually, it's funny you mentioned that too, because I don't know if I've ever talked about this publicly before. I would still someday like to do sort of like a I guess not really a reboot, but not like a Tome equivalent of Parody Rangers, like what Tome was to TV Tome Adventures. But like do something new with those characters in like an original setting that doesn't necessarily have to do with Power Rangers. Because I think that they are still funny. They probably need some tweaking because some of them are a little like not PC for with how social justice-y Tumblr can be for good reason at times. I do love those characters, and I would love to do something more with them. I don't know if I ever will get the chance to, but that's certainly something that could be up in the air someday. So you never know.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. Kind of like put in your own little twist into these original characters that you kind of created out of these parodies, and put it into like some sort of different universe and a different concept. That would be kind of cool. And maybe you can just make a revamped version of the current Power Rangers, which is currently right now Dino Thunder. Or maybe not, I don't know.
I don't know about that. I don't think if I were to do something with them that I would do another, like, flat-out Power Rangers parody, because, honestly, after I finished the final Nintendo collab, and then I did the Mario RPG Waltz the Forest music video, I kind of decided that I didn't really want to do parodies anymore, because stuff like Tome and Balancing Act and things like that were the real kind of stuff that I wanted to make from the beginning. And it's funny, because I used to get, like, reamed on Newgrounds in my kind of early days for like he doesn't have an original bone in his body, he's not even doing anything original, and when in reality stuff like this that I'm doing now was what I always wanted to do in the first place. I just kind of got swept up in the whole sort of thing of like, oh, if I do parodies on the internet then people will pay attention to me and I'll get popular. And now I mean that's how a lot of animators are able to make their living, is because they have to do parodies or spoofs or sometimes even not even animation, but like let's plays or review shows or whatever, that just things that involve pre-existing material that they didn't make. And I'm more about making the material that will maybe even inspire others to do those reviews or otherwise, or where fan fiction, fan art, whatever, you know what I mean? So I don't know if it probably would not be just like a flat out Power Rangers parody, but I mean, in terms of like just those characters from the series that I did on Newgrounds, I could maybe use them for something else in a totally new and hopefully original concept that could work with them aesthetically. So, we'll see.
Considering that reviews were almost at its infancy at the time, you started in 2006 with Parody Rangers, and that was kind of like when the Angry Video Game Nerd started making more of his episodes, like the Power Glove episode and the Nightmare on Elm Street and the Friday the 13th and the Karate Kid episodes. And I think that, with parodies, yes, there are some moments in which parodies can be fun and it can be enjoyable. And, maybe some people will not be talking about, he doesn't have a creative bone in his body. But at the same time, even though that you're not really proud of it and maybe those weren't the things that you wanted to do in the first place, for the most part, that's how a lot of maybe your fans, like including myself, that's how we're able to get introduced to your work. And, even some of the stuff that you're not really proud of, I still enjoy them. I mean, I know that you're probably going to cringe this, but I actually really thought that your Nico Nico Doga song was really hilarious.
Oh, God.
I know.
You're one of the few people that even knows what the hell that is. God, don't Google that one, folks. But no, I mean, it's funny because like the kind of quintessential example of what you're talking about was Brawl Taunts, which that one I can say I'm not proud of genuinely for a lot of different reasons. But when I get I don't get to do a lot of conventions necessarily. I say that, but I just did Anime Kanji recently, which was a lot of fun. And what I'm saying is the rare times when I do get to meet fans of mine or people that followed my work, from the old days or recently or whatever, no matter what it is that they watched of mine, I'm always completely appreciative of the fact that just they cared enough to watch it. So like if people, I usually joke around like, oh yeah, I love Brawl Taunts, and I got introduced to your stuff from Brawl Taunts. I'm always jokingly like, oh, I'm so sorry, just like miss them or whatever. But I'm not unappreciative that like, if that's what they saw and if it actually made them laugh or if they really liked it or if they have like just some fond memories of those times or whatever, that's still very meaningful to me, and I never try to like be an ass about it or anything. But yeah, no, and I mean, all that stuff, like I was kind of implying before, they were all learning experiences in many, many, many different ways. And I mean, even Tome now is kind of a learning experience, and whatever I'm able to end up doing next after season 2 is over, which is a little up in the air right now, but there's a few different things in the works. I'm just hoping that it'll be bigger and better, and people who now might have gotten into my work because of Tome first, when they see whatever I do next, they'll be like, "Oh, dude, this is just as good," or "Oh, I remember Tome and I really liked it," and I'll be just as appreciative to that as I am with anything else as well. So.
Sure. I mean, considering that Tome, is one of the very first times in which you try to do something that was based off of an idea of yours, as opposed to doing something of a parody, which, I'm sure that, even if you, regret doing Tome for whatever reason, the characters could have been tweaked, or maybe the episodes could have been better, I think because it's your first learning experience, it's something that you can definitely be really proud of, because I know that you put a lot of work into it, you put a lot of work in the characters and the story, and the episodes, and I'm sure you have a lot of fond memories of how you came up with ideas, or maybe editing the voice acting or whatever. So I mean, regardless of how you feel about Tome or anything like that, I think that it'll definitely be something that a lot of people will really appreciate and something that you will definitely put as one of your proudest moments in your art and animation.
Oh, for sure, yeah. I mean, Tome was arguably the biggest learning experience I've had, and what I've been fortunate about is that not only was it a big learning experience, but it proved to be one of the most successful things that I've done. And it's funny because the amount of views that an episode of Tome will get just absolutely pale in comparison to any of the Nintendo collabs or Brawl Taunts or any of that stuff. But the trade-off, and I was implying this before as well, is when we did the crowdfunding campaign almost a whole year ago now, which I can't believe.
Wow.
For season 2, there was such overwhelming support for just people wanting to be involved with the show. They were willing to donate money to get background characters in an episode of the show. And I don't claim that Tome is any sort of amazing or even that original. I mean, I'm ripping off Dot Hack and Megaman Battle Network for Christ's sake. But even so, it's very meaningful to me. I really do love the show. I love everybody who works on it with me, all the amazing staff members that have been, the ones that have been here since the beginning, the ones who have joined on throughout the show and with the start of season 2 and everything. And they've worked so hard, and a lot of them are really proud of the stuff that they've managed to include in the series and everything as well. It's so in that way too. It's very much a shared piece of effort with many people who are great friends of mine and wonderfully talented artists that I'm so honored to work with and who dedicated all this time to making this thing with me. So it's I agree. Tome, I think, is going to be something that no matter what I do next, for better or worse, it's going to be something that is probably part of my history of doing all this crazy internet content creation crap. So.
Yeah, definitely. And also, when discussing about all the people that you've worked with, which, for the most part, occasionally you also get really special appearances or guest performances from other voice actors. I'm sure that, for example, you had Ben Diskin and Kyle Hebert and numerous other people. I'm sure that, that must have been amazing for you. How did you get a hold of those people?
It's funny. My catch-all answer for I'm often asked that, is it's as simple as I either knew them already, and Ben Diskin and Kyle, in particular, I've known them both. Ben I've known for I think about a year now, maybe a little over a year or so. No, I'm sorry. I've known him for about a year and a half because we had him on another podcast interview, and then we became friends after that. Yeah, it's really funny. He he and Kyle are friends of mine now, and Mona Marshall's become a good friend since I moved out here as well. And and for the other ones that I didn't know as personally, it was as simple as I just maintained a professional attitude. I reached out to them and said, "Hey, my name is Chris. I do this cartoon. It's an independent production. It's not worth a lot of money, but I'd really love to have you involved. I think you'd be great for this character." And then we just kind of work out each individual deal from there, I guess you could say. And all of them have pretty much always been "Yeah, dude, that sounds like a lot of fun. I'd love to work with you." I've never had any kind of experience of "Oh, no, I'm not interested, sorry," or "Oh, yeah, this isn't for me, this little crappy internet cartoon," or whatever. Everyone's been totally into it. And I'm very thankful for that, because I've gotten to work with a lot of some heroes of mine, a lot of people who like really influenced me to like get interested in voiceover in the first place. There was actually a big guest that I just worked out for an upcoming episode of Tome that I can't talk about yet because it's a big surprise, but one that's very personally meaningful to me that I'm very happy I managed to get on board the show. And they've always been a pleasure to work with. They're always very nice. I've worked with very few jerks in my time, to be honest. I can maybe count them on one hand at best. And so I guess that's kind of how I've done it. And they've been gracious enough to continue doing it and be enthusiastic, so.
It's almost kind of like the similar way of me when I ever get an interview or a special guest on my podcast, in which, early on, I usually just write over to people saying, hey, my name is Patricia, I do this podcast, or I did a blog, because we first started off with, just sending them the questions, and then they'll answer them, and then very rarely we get a no or I'm too busy, and then for the most part we get a yes, and a lot of these people are willing to answer our questions. And then when we started doing podcasts and inviting people over, they've been really nice, and sometimes we've been lucky enough to get other people who, from the people that we have interviewed previously over to our podcast because of the way that we were able to treat them, professionally, and we were able to treat them nicely and not be all creepy and stuff. Like, for example, for some of our listeners, you probably know that around a few months ago, we got Paul Germain and Joanne Salabaher, who are the co-creators of Recess and who also worked on Rugrats and Hey Arnold. The reason why I got that was because Craig Bartlett, who was the creator of Hey Arnold, was able to be nice enough to give me their contact information. And then, just recently I did a Rugrats Passover commentary with Paul Germain, and, he was really nice enough to take the time to do the commentary with me. And, just being really professional and not being too, creepy and stuff like that. Just basically being yourself and not treating these people like they're gods or anything like that. Just treating them like they're real people is a real key way of how you can be able to interact and eventually maybe become friends with one of them. I remember when I first interviewed Mark Summers a few years ago, he told me that when he interviewed Johnny Carson when he was very young and he was really nervous, it taught him this really important lesson about how, when you're starting off and you're really nervous, that's cute and all, but then eventually if you keep doing that to everybody else, they're not going to treat you seriously. And that was a huge, important lesson that I was able to learn, in which if you are going to be interviewing somebody or meeting somebody that you've been a huge fan of your entire life, sure, you can be a little nervous at first, but then eventually you're going to have to treat them like if they were any other person, be smiling, be happy, just talk about all the wonderful things that you like about them, and, just be yourself. That's really a genuine thing, as opposed to, like, just being a pretender or just saying a whole bunch of things that makes you look fake. So I take it that with every person that you've, meet or something like that, whether they're famous or not, I think that they'll really appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, we're all human beings. We're all, we just, sometimes we are lucky enough to have very cool jobs, but we're still human. So, there's no gods among people in the entertainment business. Everybody,
exactly.
No illusions about that, but yeah.
Now, another thing is that I know that you're a huge Megaman fan, and I'm also a huge Megaman fan as well. I asked this question to two other people on my podcast who also were huge Megaman fans, but I was wondering, if you had the opportunity to make any Megaman game that you wanted, you had all the budget in the world and all the programming, what kind of Megaman game would you make, and how would it be like?
Ooh, that's tough. I've thought about that before. I don't know. I don't think I even have an answer to that, because I think I'd love to try my own interpretation of any of the different Mega Man series. It'd be interesting to try and do something completely new and interesting with the classic series. Instead of just doing the typical, like, you fight 8 and then you move on to the next one or whatever. Or, I don't know, like another Battle Network game would be really fun. Something in between the end of 6 and Star Force or whatever. And maybe like another, Mega Man Legends 3 almost happened. I would love to, do that. But, I would more want to leave that up to the actual staff more than anything. But, I don't know. It's difficult to say. But I think any of the series, it would be a lot of fun to, like, put my own spin on it. But, I don't think that's a position where you can always necessarily make everybody happy, because everyone kind of has their own interpretation of not how they would do it, but rather what it is that is fun about Mega Man. Same thing with Sonic too. It's like I have no idea what I would do with Sonic if I was given that opportunity. But I don't know. I guess my real answer is I would just like to make my own games. That's definitely a thing that I want to move on to doing in the future. I don't know if that'll come right after Tome necessarily, but that's definitely a future plan that I'd like to incorporate into all the stuff that I do. So
yeah, that'd be kind of interesting. And, also your experiences with voice acting, you've, just like you previously mentioned, you voice acted in anime and cartoons and video games. Not to mention that you also voice directed in various video games and in your project. So what are the differences in you voice acting or voice directing in a project as opposed to doing the editing and, doing all the major work in your projects?
Well, I mean, everybody has a different kind of approach to directing, and I don't try to have an ego about it necessarily. I mean, there's still a lot that I have to learn about, not only voiceover directing, but acting, just in general, because they both go very much hand in hand in this kind of thing. I mean, when I'm working for somebody else, both when I'm casting and directing, for another person's project or these indie games and stuff, or I'm just voicing in another project of some kind. I always try to think of the client first, the people who are actually in charge of this. I try to put them before myself always, because a lot of people think that acting is kind of like an ego thing, and it's not supposed to be. Jaleel White said this. He was the voice of Sonic for many years, and Steve Urkel and all that stuff. Talked about how acting is. It's meant to be we're giving you what you want. We're trying to do our best to give you what you want, which is a good performance and something fun and enjoyable and entertaining. It's not about us okay, everybody sit back and let me do my my acting thing, because I'm so great at this or whatever. People who do act like that are idiots. And I thankfully again I can count very few of those on my hand, but. It's in the same kind of way. When I'm working, it's a job. Treat it like it's a job, and your job is to do your job as best as you can. So that's what I do, and if say for instance some directors want to give me line readings, I don't get all prima donna about no, you're going to let me do it the way that I want to do it. It's okay, this person clearly has a clear grasp on what is necessary for this part of the story or this performance or whatever. So if they want me to do a specific thing, then I'll do it, and I'm not gonna make a big fuss out of it or whatever. And when I get to do whatever I want and I have more creative freedom, that's more fun. But I'm also not going to hold that against any director or client that wants me to really be specific or mess around with things or whatever, and that adheres to their vision because it's their thing. It's then and also they're paying me,
right?
So I just don't feel it's right for me to be combative and well, no, excuse me, because I'm not a trained actor. I don't have a theatrical radio background or anything like that. I fell into this completely by accident, practically. Well, not by accident, but just not setting out to be a pro at this necessarily. And but I've just thankfully been able to again maintain a professional attitude, and it's part of how I've gotten a lot of the opportunities that I've had. So.
Now, do you think you would have gotten the same amount of opportunities if you were, trained, or if you were to feature your projects on TV as opposed to something on the internet?
Well, I've gotten to do stuff on TV and home releases and things, but I don't know. I mean, I think that kind of goes back to your question about what would you be doing if you weren't animating. And I mean, I think if I studied like acting and doing theater or whatever, primarily, then I mean, maybe I would have been working earlier. I would have pursued doing voiceover.
Well, I meant by maybe I should rephrase that question. Do you think that Tome would be different if it was picked up by an actual channel or a network, and as opposed to something on the internet, where the internet is a little bit more freer for you to express your work?
Oh, probably. Well, that's also kind of the upside of the double-edged sword, is that I'm allowed to just do whatever I want, and I'm not held to standards and practices or whatever, and I can just. If I find something is creatively satisfying to do it a certain way, then I'll just do it. And, very, very happy that I, can just do that. I try not to take that for granted much.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, it's very possible it would have turned out differently, but I don't know. I guess we'll never know until I someday manage to get an actual TV show or something someday. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? It's interesting because a lot of people who are interested in doing animation nowadays are doing it online as opposed to TV, which, of course is because, they're able to do their own creative ways of thinking, as opposed to if they were to present it to a network, which, may possibly be rejected, or maybe if it was picked up, they have to maybe be restricted to certain things that they have to present, which I think that's why a lot of people are doing their stuff online, because of, being able to become free to express what they want to present. And I think because of all the online programs that are being featured, it's able to give inspirations for even the stuff that is on now on TV. Creativity for animated shows has really skyrocketed over the years, and a lot of people say that maybe it's because of the internet and all the content that is being presented on animated shows, that it was able to become kind of like their ticket into saying that, man, TV, all the animated shows that are being presented, we need to step it up. We need to take it to the next level. And, all the stuff that is being presented online, maybe we should be able to make that similar creativity on television, because, kids nowadays are not watching stuff on TV anymore. They're watching stuff online.
I think that there's been some cross influence there, but I mean, there's definitely different perceptions that the audience has when they're watching internet stuff. And I mean, you talk about creative freedom. That's true to an extent, but at the same time, it's like, I was kind of implying earlier about how, like, oh, well, if you want to actually make a living doing, YouTube animation, you kind of have to play the game a little bit. You got to pander and, like, make stuff that, like, is going to get a lot of hits, that you can, get good ad revenue and actually make money. So it's not always as, like, freeing as you might expect. That's why I'm very lucky that I'm able to make a living doing all the stuff that I do, because Tome is very unorthodox, and it's like kind of a setup for failure in terms of, like, oh, well, this isn't, something that is going to get millions of views and draw on all the subscribers and make me money or whatever necessarily, but I do it because it's what I'm the most passionate about, and it's just worked out that, like, enough people like it that I've been able to support myself doing it. But I mean, in general, I think that creators, I mean, especially ones who get TV shows and who have the budget to, do a lot more, at least, like, visually impressive things, and they can have more help of, people involved to make it as good as possible. I mean, we're in a place now also that we have so many good stories. Like TV, I think, is where some of the best animated stories in particular are right now. There's countless great shows on pretty much every channel at this point, and Netflix and Hulu and stuff like that are kind of, and even Amazon are starting to open up the floodgates for doing kind of that nice in-between sort of area of, like, doesn't have to just be, like, either a kid show on normal hours of the day or an Adult Swim or Comedy Central adult show. It can be something in between. It can be something for teenagers or otherwise, And that I think is really good, that more people are kind of being open to those less black and white sort of perceptions of animated entertainment, but we still definitely have a long way to go in terms of people being comfortable with those in-between states, and I hope as things progress, we'll have more shows like that, and maybe I'll even get to make one of them. Who knows?
Maybe. I have a question regarding about, today's animation. I've been seeing sort of like a divide between the animated shows that are going on nowadays. For the most part, a lot of people saying that the animated shows that are going on nowadays are amazing. Like, they're the best things that happened in a very long time. Well, on the other hand, I've been seeing a lot of people saying, oh, the animated shows are nothing compared to of the shows that came out previously. What are your opinions on that?
I think that's a load of crap. I've always thought that. People who are just like, oh, don't make them like they used to, are just, like, old and, like, don't have any imagination, or they're just, like, I don't know. And I mean, yeah, there's bad shows, but there were bad shows back then also, in the heyday that everybody claims was, like, this is when the best stuff was. It's like there's there's bad. It's also where I'm like, oh, anime sucks, or except for this show and this show and this show. It's like, for Christ's sake, like there's a lot of good and a lot of bad stuff of anything like this. It's just the way it is inherently. So I don't know. I like the stuff that we have right now. I'm really enjoying, Steven Universe and Gumball and Korra was excellent. The new Ninja Turtles, Gravity Falls, obviously. A lot of other shows I haven't finished yet or even gotten the chance to watch yet. And, and we're in a really good place. I don't really I don't see the need for people complaining so much about that stuff, but I don't know. And people are going to continue to do that no matter what anyway. So.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
Yeah, whatever. I don't lose sleep over that stuff. There's no point.
Yeah, exactly. I'm kind of mixed between it because I completely agree with you. The shows that are coming out now are incredible, and I don't understand why people are complaining about it. But at the other hand, I kind of see where they're at because, in their quote-unquote, childhoods when they were watching shows that came out in the 90s, I can understand that, the reason why those shows were memorable and great was because of how influential they were compared to the shows that came out in the 80s in which they were mostly toy-based. And I think, in my opinion, partially why the shows that are coming out now are so great is because the creators and animators who are working on these amazing cartoons now were the people who grew up during the golden era or second or third Renaissance era of animation, whatever you want to call it, in which, there were creator-driven cartoons that didn't rely on toys or action figures, and they were their own original ideas that can be able to be played around with. And yes, there are some shows that are bad, and trust me, there's going to be like that for every generation. And I think for the most part, creativity is something that can be brought out, for many influences, and I'm sure that maybe that's partially why, or maybe because they wanted to bring out their creativity of other influences, but I think for the most part, I understand where, you're going at for saying that the shows were great back in the day, but on the other hand, just please watch the shows that are out now. I mean, they're amazing. Stop being stuck into your ways, people.
I don't know. I mean, if they don't like them, they don't have to. But I mean, at least it's not fair to just like hate on everything because then it's just like we can't progress. Like if things change, like senses of comedy change, and it's just the way it is. Everybody, it's like it's better to just be a little more open and accepting of it as opposed to just whining. But.
Yeah, exactly. But trust me, you're going to get whining anyways. Yeah, I mean, I have a really strong feeling that, the people who are kids now are probably going to whine about the shows that are going to come out in the future and saying that, oh, those shows are terrible and the stuff that I grew up with were awesome. It's just a continuing cycle.
Probably.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I know. Let's go on.
The negative Nancy.
Yeah, I know. Let's go into the more positive stuff. A car blog that you released a while ago, the Klasky Chupa one, was one of my all-time favorites because you're one of the very few people who praises As Told by Ginger, and I've been talking about that show for a long time about how incredibly underrated that was, and I just want to say thank you so much for bringing that up. I really do appreciate it.
Of course, yeah, no, it was a good show. I marathoned the whole thing, and I think in my last year of college, and I genuinely liked it. I saw a bunch of episodes I hadn't seen, and I was really into them. So it wasn't even the matter of like, oh, I remember liking the show as a kid. It's like, no, it still holds up. The fact that the creator was a writer and not an artist, and her writing was so good that she got the series picked up says a lot about it because it was.
Yeah, and
very well put together.
Yeah, and considering that she was the only creator in the Nickelodeon Klasky Chupa lineup that created it that wasn't Arlene or Gabor, that's a lot to say about it,
Yeah, for sure.
And and she's all been doing other projects. She did Suburgatory, she did Selfie, so she's done a lot of other projects that are really well done. And a lot of the episodes in that series was. Very serious, and it was really dramatic, which I guess I could understand why not a lot of people watched it, because it was very different from all the other Klasky Chupa Nicktoons, and pretty much almost every other Nicktoon that came out during that time when it was more comedic. But, yeah, I still really stand strong about that series as a whole.
Me too. I genuinely liked it, and, it deserves some more. I mean, a lot of those shows I think deserve more credit, but I don't know. I mean, the fact that they were all very successful, like they all sort of speak for themselves anyway. So it's like whatever.
Yeah, sure. And let's just ask. I'm going to ask a few more questions while we wrap it up. So, what is the process of doing a Tome episode?
Oh God, that's a loaded one. Basically, we wrote a lot of the episodes, like multiple episode scripts ahead of time. We record sometimes the entire cast for many of them way ahead of time. Like for season 2, we recorded all of the Net King actors. We did all 6 of their episodes in one session each. So like Kyle Bear as webmaster recorded all 6 of the episodes, all of his webmaster lines. But for some of the main cast members, we'll have Shady and Anna and some of them record their lines for each episode as we get to them. But we record everything, and then I edit all the audio together. And what I've been doing lately is now I'll do an animatic stage for all of the individual scenes instead of just going through each scene like 100% doing every bit of animation or whatever, because I like to work ahead and make it as clear-cut as possible so all my other team members can do what they need to do. And, so I go ahead with the animating. I usually lay out the easier stuff first with the sprite animation, all the kind of reusable assets and things. And then I do all the more detailed stuff. I finish that up. If I have any extra things that need to be taken care of by my crew members for the visuals, I'll have them come in after me and do their stuff. And then I hand off the footage and the sound, all the dialogue and music and everything to Shady. He mixes it all together, masters the audio to make it sound all pristine and nice and everything. And then he does the sound effects to it, brings it all back to me. I cut everything together. And now we also have a video editor online as well to help with this final exports and make them all nice and pristine and everything. And and then we deliver them straight to you guys, and hopefully you enjoy them. It's the uncomplicated version of how we make an episode. It can take anywhere from a couple months to several months, etc. But I try to get one done every few months at best, depending on how it goes. So yeah.
Yeah, and while you're doing the episodes, you do your Kerblogs, which I really like your Kerblogs because it feels like you're answering personal questions or personal statements about your experiences or, what you have been going through in the past and, just things that you are very interested in. It's almost like you're not only just expressing yourself, but you're also kind of talking to your fans and discussing about things that we can be able to relate to or things that we can be able to learn from, which are, really great to listen to. I've always been a huge fan of your Kerblogs.
Well, thanks so much. Yeah, I mean, they're quick and easy, and, I never want to give up and just do a Let's Play channel or something. I'm not into that, so I wanted to talk about things that were genuinely interesting to me, and I've been very grateful and happy to find out that a lot of people, including yourself, not only enjoy them, but also just get something personal out of them if they're about advice or or they're just even if something as simple as just I remember stuff about Kingdom Hearts or Dragon Ball Z or whatever, and oh yeah, me too, whatever, and that's been a lot of fun. And again, yeah, they've been kind of my bread and butter in terms of making money on YouTube for the past year and a half now. So yeah, thank you for listening to those for sure.
Absolutely. And you also, I really enjoyed your Did You Know voice acting series in which you talk about interesting facts about various animated projects. You haven't done one in a while. Did you decide to take a break on that, or are you going to be working on a new one pretty soon?
I decided to take a break from them because doing Tome episodes are more important.
Of course.
So I haven't done one in quite a while, and I don't know when I'll be able to get back to them. I do want to do more of them. I have several more ideas for them, and plenty of. I think I even had a few written, and I started on some other ones, etc. But it just came down to I would rather spend more time working on Tome episodes first and foremost, as opposed to those. But again, we'll see in the future. Hopefully, I'll be able to get back to doing some more of those in the future. You never know.
All right. Absolutely. And just one final question. When looking through, all the future projects that you're thinking about doing, and where do you want to, go? Where do you want to go as far as being an artist and an actor and an animator? Where do you see yourself, going down, continuing this path of wanting to be your own person in that sense?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things that I want to do. And I want to make sure that I do them all before I'm dead. I would love to direct a movie, an animated feature film. I would love to do more series if I were able to. I would love to do a game. I have several game ideas. Again, as far as what's next, really depend on what I'm able to do next, but I definitely have a whole lot of ideas, and whatever I get to do next, hopefully I'll be able to do it to the best of my ability, and everybody will like it. So that's all I can ever hope for.
All right, well, that concludes this episode of Casual Chats. Chris, right before we go, do you have anything to shamelessly plug or self-promote?
Just if you want to check out my stuff, if anybody listening to this, maybe hasn't heard of me before, or if you remember my old stuff and haven't seen my new stuff, my YouTube channel is Kirbopher 15. I'm sure Patricia will probably have a link to it somewhere in the show notes or something. And as far as stuff to plug, I don't know, go check out BlackHole on Steam. It's a game that I voice directed the English version of from this studio in the Czech Republic called Fiolasoft. It was a lot of fun and got a lot of voice actors you might recognize from some other things. And that's about it. Yeah, and just like and subscribe and watch Tome and Kerblogs and whatever. Usual. It's me.
All right. Well, Chris, thank you so much for taking the time for this interview. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, and everybody, hope you enjoy. Hopefully, it wasn't too boring. And before we go, because I always feel the need to do this whenever I do a podcast. Do you have any really nerdy questions, like very specific things about something I've done that maybe you've been curious about for centuries, and now I can remember something and give you an answer to that or something?
Regarding about your projects, or regarding about just anything in general?
Both.
Okay. Parody Rangers in Space. In your YouTube account, you have an alternative ending in which it's almost like Ocarina of Time, as opposed to the original ending in which it showcases the original Red Ranger, and he, talks to him and brings him back to life. And what made you decide to change the ending, the alternative ending, when you uploaded it to YouTube as opposed to the original ending?
Basically, the reason I made a new ending is because I had no other choice. Long story short, I did not have the original completed animation file for Parody Rangers 3, and the most updated copy that I had was on this old computer. For those of you who don't know, last year, I believe, is when I did this thing called Flashback Friday, where I was uploading a bunch of my old Newgrounds cartoons that previously weren't up on my channel, and they weren't up on YouTube in HD. A lot of people were just kind of putting them up without my permission, and etc. So what happened was I because I didn't have the completed file for Rangers 3, because I think I had switched to a different computer by that point. Yeah, because I finished the rest of it by the time I was starting college, and I moved everything to a laptop that didn't have those files anymore. So I was like, okay, well, I don't have anything beyond the part where Meat is speaking with them. I'll just make some sort of weird, Zelda rip-off type thing where, haha, the alternate timeline crap with, this is the timeline where the hero succeeds, and this is the timeline where the hero fails, or whatever. And then to kind of go with it, I even have that Zelda parody, like you were saying, with the Ocarina of Time bit with Vector the Crocodile talking to Zelda in the void or whatever, and then the timeline resets, and then it goes to the movie or whatever. And it was just silly and whatever, but it was fun. It was just a cool little quick revisiting to that series and everything. And again, it was just kind of out of necessity, but I like doing that. Hopefully people weren't too upset about the fact that it was kind of necessary. So.
That's a really interesting story. Another question that I was wondering is that you did 7 Kerblogs on Dragon Ball Z in honor of the new Dragon Ball Z movie that came out. Are you thinking about doing a very special, certain part vlog for another show or anime or anything in general on that? One that has a theme?
The only other one that I ever thought about doing like that was, in terms of a series of Kerblogs, so I thought about doing a Sonic month or something, but I don't know if I'd have enough topics to cover. Maybe I might be able to, but I have to really think hard about it. Is do a whole bunch about Sonic, but it also have to be in celebration of something big, and I feel like there's not really an equivalent of that with Sonic right now. Considering, oh man, the new game is an iPhone running game. Good job, Saga. But I am planning on finally doing the Sonic Adventure 1 versus Sonic Adventure 2 Kerblog that I've teased over a year and a half ago. I think I've picked out some folks I'm going to do that one with. So maybe look forward to that. But as far as themed months goes and stuff, I might do that again at some point. But I'd have to really think hard about other stuff that I'm really like that knowledgeable on in the first place. So we'll see how it goes. But again, as with everything else, I've given these general sort of catch-all answers. Like, we'll see what happens.
Right. What are your favorite underrated animated shows or animated movies, and which animated shows or movies do you feel that are a little bit overrated?
Frozen is overrated. No, it's a good movie. I just didn't personally enjoy it. I like Tangled better. I don't know. Some of my favorite shows, anime-wise, are Speedgrapher, which was by Gonzo Animation, and back Mongolian Chop Squad, which has a decent fan base, I would say, but it's not really as popular as I think it deserves to be. And American cartoons, I have to think about that. I don't know offhandedly, but I don't know. Any kids who didn't grow up with some of the older series back in the day from like Cartoon Network and whatever, go back and find that, because there are plenty of other good shows out there that you should check out. So.
Now, you already did a list on your top 10 Nintendo 64 games. Have you ever thought about doing one for any other console?
I have. I don't know when or which console I'll do, but those are definitely some easy kind of like, I don't feel like doing something like that has a lot of thought put into it. I'll just do another one of these kind of easy ones. That, and whenever I do ones about like, I'm going to talk about this old anime or this game or whatever that I liked, or just recounting memories about it or whatever. I've been sitting on a bunch of those that I've been getting questions from people about, but I try to keep those sparing, so I'm not making it just like, remember Kingdom Hearts, remember Teen Titans or whatever, because then it's just like, it's boring. I'm sure I'll probably do some more top 10 lists at some point. We'll see.
For the most part, you brought in your friends to do it. Now, how is that opposed to doing like auditions for doing a certain project?
Auditions, thankfully, the only time I ever did an open audition was actually for the Parody Rangers movie. I don't know if you remember this from the old Blogspot page that I had for the movie, but I had an open audition for the two new characters in that, which were Dulcie and Evan Splooge, the parodies of Dulcia and Ivan Ooze from the Power Rangers movie. And I ultimately got Kira Buckland and Joshua Tomar for the two of them respectively. And I actually got quite a few other ones of people that I later ended up working with by complete happenstance. I didn't even realize that a lot of them auditioned for it. And that was the only time I ever had an open audition. I got a lot of really bad ones. But otherwise, like, now I have such a bigger talent pool, and whenever I'm doing auditions for game projects or other things like that, I can just... There's very few times where I'm getting anything that's bad because I don't work with people who are bad. So my wonderful actors that I've amassed over the last several years make my life easier in terms of the times when I do auditions or things, for sure.
When Season 2 started, there were some changes that occurred compared to Tome Season 1. Like, the characters' designs are different, and some plots of the storylines were more fleshed out. Now... For some people, they really liked it. For other people, they were a little bit iffy about it. How would you kind of put in that balance of, putting enough change that would make people satisfied, but not too much in which it doesn't either alienate them or in which it just kind of plays it too safe and you're not adding anything new?
Yeah, I don't like to pander. If I make a mistake with something, I own it. And, if people don't like it, then they don't like it. And then I'm like, all right, well, I learned my lesson, and I'll... try to think outside the box next time. But because even like with the story itself, like my script supervisor Liz and I, have a lot of disagreements about kind of how the story was going. But it's because I was kind of stubbornly keeping to the plot that I set out to make from the beginning, and I just really wanted to stick to it because I felt like everything I was leading up to with it was all kind of designed from the beginning to end. And I felt if I made too drastic changes, especially to the ending, then it would have been like not. Following through with what I set out to do in the first place. And, there are definitely issues with it, and a lot of the points that she raised were very valid and perfectly understandable. And I think that it will be, seeing what the reaction is will definitely be a good signification of what to keep in mind for whatever I end up getting to do next. But, when I make mistakes, I own them, and I try to just kind of take them in stride and move on and, do, again, just the best I can on whatever comes next, And the character designs were, one of those examples of I was like, I made those changes just because I was like, I want to do something different with the designs. Like when animes do time skips and stuff, it was about as simple as that, really. And there wasn't like some big plot reason or whatever, I guess. But I don't know. I mean, the fact that a lot of people really didn't enjoy them, and I made those color changes in particular because I thought, okay, people don't like my washed out, gray kind of colors or whatever. I'll try and do something a little brighter, a little more, vibrant or whatever. And then people ended up really not liking them, and they liked the previous ones better. So it's like, all right, well then maybe I should stick to what it is that I like doing in terms of that, more so, or try to find some kind of better balance in between the two. You know what I mean? So in that way, it makes, even though it's a mistake, and something that gets bad feedback, it doesn't make it unworth it or anything. So
I understand, yeah. Do you think that you would have gotten the same opportunities if you would have stayed in New York as opposed to moving into California, or do you think that more opportunities happened when you moved over to California?
I think the only couple things that would have involved, having me staying in New York was if I had gotten. Well, I guess just the catch-all to that is if I would have had a consistent job that would have helped me pay my bills. Two of those things that didn't happen were a studio job at some of the few only existing animation studios left in New York that do anything. I was not able to land any jobs with any of them, to be honest. And also I auditioned for one of the main characters on both Pokemon Black and White and Pokemon X and Y in the time that I was there. And if I had booked either, I auditioned for Silent on Pokemon Black and White, and I auditioned for Clement on X and Y, and I was actually pretty close to getting Clement. I found out I was in the running for him. I found out from the producer. But I think if I had booked either of those characters, I would have stayed in New York for at least a few more years to finish up doing the shows. Like if I was a consistent character, for every week or whatever. But obviously that didn't happen. So when an opportunity came for me to just pack things up and go to Los Angeles, where there was much more work, and it was the center hub of all the stuff that I ultimately wanted to do anyway, I figured, well, you know what, I'm going to take the opportunity while I have it and just go full force into it. And I haven't looked back, and I don't have any regrets. I do miss New York City, and I miss my family and my friends back there a lot, but things have been doing pretty good out here, so certainly can't complain.
What's your favorite and least favorite generation of Pokemon?
Favorite, I think Black and White so far. I've really enjoyed the Black and White series. And least favorite, right now it's Ruby and Sapphire, but I haven't played my copy of Omega Ruby that Little Karibo gave me for Christmas yet, so that might change. Who knows? I also have a really big attachment to Gold and Silver as well, but Black and White, I think objectively was kind of like the most balanced, interesting, cool kind of original one that I really liked. So,
what is your favorite saga in the Dragon Ball series?
I'm gonna say now that with DBZ Kai, the Frieza saga, and by that I mean the whole everything from they get to Namek up to Goku defeats Frieza. With Kai, with just the faster pace, and then of course the dub with the better writing and the updated cast and everything. I think that was one of the strongest parts of the whole story. And I do love the Android stuff. I love the Boo stuff as well. But I think overall, that's probably my favorite part of the series. So,
are you planning on doing any collaborations with anybody pretty soon? I know you've done animations for other wonderful people, and I know that you've also appeared in Did You Know Gaming. You even wrote a couple of scripts for them. Any collaborations with anybody pretty soon?
Yes, but none of which that I can talk about yet, so you'll have to stay tuned for details on that in the future.
All right. How did you get a chance to be involved with Channel Frederator?
It was as simple as before I applied, because the partnership is kind of open to anybody, to be honest now, but I knew some people at Frederator ahead of time, and I was trying to get a YouTube partner for a little while, but for some reason there were some technical issues and it never happened, and it was kind of worked out for the better, because then instead of signing with the network that I was talking with at the time, I ended up going with Frederator themselves because they started their own, and we got all that stuff settled. And then, I signed with them, and I've been with them for about a year and a half now. And it was pretty simple. I literally I applied and they accepted me. It's not been as difficult of a process as it's been for other people with getting into bigger networks and things. So I've been thankful for that.
That's okay. And now you were mentioning in previously that Tome is basically just like a reimagining of TV Tome Adventures. Now, what are your opinions on reboots, remakes, or remasterings of animated shows or movies, or in general?
In general, I think as long as they are entertaining, I'm perfectly fine with them. Do I wish that there would be more original stuff in general? Sure. But I'm not against the idea of remakes or reboots or etc. As long as they're done interestingly and entertainingly.
Which do you feel of, these reboots or remakes or remasters? Do you feel that was done the best, and which one did you feel was unnecessary?
Unnecessary? I mean, too many of them are. I couldn't give you a most unnecessary. But ones that I'm liking the most, I'm trying to think about that. I mean, a lot of the Hasbro ones, I mean, not just MLP, but, G.I. Joe Renegades I loved. I thought that was a fantastic show. I've been liking a lot of the Marvel movies. I guess those aren't really reboots. This has been them actually trying to do this for the first time. I don't know. I guess I don't really think about it too much. But I think I just have a general wish for I wish people would do more original movies overall. But, I mean, we still have plenty of that anyway, so it's not that big of a deal.
Sure. And another one I was wondering is that even though that you're not interested in going back to, some of the older parody projects, have you ever thought about maybe at one point you want to take some of those parody projects and, besides Parody Rangers, and kind of remake it into something a little bit more original like you were mentioning?
Well, Tome and Parody Rangers are the only ones of those that people would know me by that I could even do that with, because the other ones were all, cartoons involving Nintendo characters.
Right.
So I guess in a way I'm already doing one of them. I'm in the process of that now. And then, if I were to ever get the chance to do that with the characters from Parody Rangers, like I was saying earlier, I would do it. But the other stuff that I did, on Newgrounds back in the day, pretty much all involved the characters that didn't belong to me in the first place. So.
Right. So I take it we're not going to be seeing a Nintendo GameCube or Game Sphere or something like that anytime soon.
Because, I did think about doing that. I remember, I think we had some people lined up to do animation for it, and I had some ideas for little vignettes for it or whatever. But, there's really no point in doing stuff like the Nintendo collabs now, because the fact of the matter is, people are kind of already making... I hesitate to say spiritual successor, because that sounds very it's because of me that they're doing this, and it's not. But the fact of the matter is, so many people are doing video game parodies in general, like even more so than before now. And they're kind of, they're just doing all this stuff, and a lot of these could basically, they might as well be, Nintendo collab segments, just shorter, sweeter, to the point, giving you your ADD fix of, wouldn't it be funny if Mario, whatever, insert here. So I feel like having a collection of them all together to give people exposure, and you can't split the money up the way that you want, etc. There's just not really a place for them on the internet now. When Newgrounds was more prevalent, sure, but now it'd just be here's the thing, and also you can just go to everybody's individual YouTube channels and watch their equivalents of a Nintendo thing, And even then, that's also not even going to your point of let's do something as an original. It's there's no original way to do something that is inherently a parody of pre-existing Nintendo games. That's not one that I can, even do that with. But as far as making one in general, I definitely thought about it a few times, and a lot of people had asked me that, but I just don't really feel like there's a point anymore to doing it, so.
Sure. Top 5 favorite voice actors and voice actresses.
Oh, God, we could be here for 7 years.
Yes.
Ones that really influenced me, Justin Cook was one that, got me very interested in just the craft and studying it myself. Andrew Francis, I think, is fantastic. There's so many. Yuri Lowenthal, Mona Marshall, who, a lot of these guys I've gotten to work with and become friends with. Ben Diskin, obviously. James Arnold Taylor, I think, is one who deserves to be appreciated. A lot of these guns that don't necessarily go to conventions, so people they're not always aware of who they are, but they completely deserve to, for all these props and everything. There's a whole bunch. Stephanie Shea, I think, is fantastic. Michael Center Nicholas, Aaron Fitzgerald. I could go on forever. There's so many. There's so many that I've learned from. There's so many that I've worked with and that I want to work with in the future. But those are just a few to start off with.
Awesome. Then I'll definitely put you on the list if I ever want to do a voice acting podcast for 20 years.
Well, maybe we might have something like that in the future. I do definitely want to go back to doing voice acting at some point, but obviously Tome episodes take priority. Sure. But maybe I'll do more of those someday. Who knows?
Sure, that'd be great. And one final question, any advice for anybody who wants to be an animator or an actor or somebody who wants to be able to pursue what they wish to do?
What I would say, as general advice I could give, is really analyze and make sure you know. Analyze in general. Analyze that you're doing this for the right reasons, like you want to get into doing, art of any kind, whether it's acting, writing, drawing, animating, whatever. Really analyze why it is that you want to do it. Because the entertainment industry is extremely difficult and heartbreaking, and it sucks. And I don't wish it upon anybody else unless you are just 100% totally dedicated to your craft. And on that same note, you really have to analyze what it is that can make you a professional at your craft. And by that I mean you need to study and hone yourself and get yourself to a point of competitive skill that will allow you to work in the first place. So, just really work hard and work smart and be smart and learn and continue to do the absolute best you can at everything and anything that you do. Just be a sponge. And then maybe one day you can be a sponge like Tom Kenny.
Exactly. And then you'll left
the same one that he was, because that's a job that no one else will ever have.
Yeah, exactly. Especially for over 15 years at this point.
That is, wow, SpongeBob is over 15 years.
I know, that's insane, isn't it?
Wow.
I know.
Oh, wow.
And considering that the movie did very successful in the box office and Hillenburg is coming back, I have a really strong feeling that SpongeBob might even last as long as The Simpsons. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it's those shows have stood the test of time, and for very good reason as far as I'm concerned. So
absolutely. And I think that's pretty much it for now. So Chris, once again, thank you so much for joining. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you again for having me, and hope again everybody out there listening. Hope you all enjoyed, and I didn't bore you to death. And we'll see you all next time.
All right, and that is the end of Casual Chats, and we'll hope to see you in the next one. So take care. Let me come in and play. I step into a world that I cherish, won't trade it any day. What the fuck is wrong with all of you? You all are insane in the membrane. I don't get why in the hell this is so popular today. I seriously don't get it. Oh god, why am I doing this? You're all gonna throw a shit fit, and I said totally gay. I know I'm going to pay. Why did I decide to do this? First off, whose idea was it to make video games all about the stupid pop singers that all get worshipped by the weeaboos? But then again, I guess that's a bunch of teenagers that like to watch some hotly drawn girls in the skimpy outfits would totally buy the shit, I guess, if that's what does it for ya. Next up, we come to this little show, a story about a bunch of underage girls. Well, I guess I get why otaku would think it's really great. Nevertheless, I just gotta say, I watched every episode and it's gay. Well, maybe not completely crappy, still it may be overrated. I can smell the hate mail pouring to my inbox. Oh, well, I asked for it, so give me your best shot. I've never tried step